So you're here for the money. Good. We're going to give you an excellent instrument to get funding for your projects. This is me. I'm Jocke at Twitter. You can read more about me on jardenberg.se. I'm a CEO Whisperer. I'm an angel investor. I have 11 investments out right now. And I'm also an internet evangelist and has been forever. I did 187 days on the road last year, and I really love everything that is connected to internet. And I love everything that is connected to startups. My wish is that when we leave this session, every one of you will place a project on some of the platforms that is out there for funding of the project. That would be a dream come true. I'm going to start talking a little bit about crowdfunding. And when we came up with the concept called crowdfunding, we thought that we were really witty. But someone was even wittier. So when I looked in the program today, I realized that they call it crowdfunding. And I think that could translate into something like thieving as a magpie. I asked Twitter, what's tjuvaktig som en skata in English, and they came up with thieving as a magpie. So that's you know all the images we have of the crow grabbing stuff. And I think that's you pretty much, okay, looking for money. And traditionally, we have a couple of ways to look for money. And the first way is to turn to VCs and the heavy investors. And you all know those guys, right? I love them. There are some good guys there as well. But, you know, it's tough. It's hard. It's tough and it's hard. So instead, a lot of the projects that want initial funding turn to the government and to the official innovation systems, and they end up in places like this. So this is Vinnova. Vinnova is actually an excellent organization. They put out, total in the Swedish innovation system, there is 112 billion invested every year into projects, and that's a whole lot of money. The problem is that those money are mainly directed to the big companies. If we look at the investment, the research and development money that is floating around in the business world in Sweden today, there are only 10 companies grabbing 50% of all that money. So it's big chunks, it's big pieces of pies for a lot of companies. And a lot of small companies, and especially internet companies that don't need all that much money to start off with, they have a problem cutting into this system because it's a lot of administration. It's big and it's very, very slow to get through that process. Now, Vinnova is working to try and change this and to make sure that not all money ends up in the universities and that not all money ends up in the car industry, for instance. And one of the ways is to find partners, and they realized that they could work together with .se. And .se already has an initiative called the Internet Fund. And the Internet Fund was launched in 2007, and they have funded 170 projects at this time. That's a lot of projects. The problem with the Internet Fund is that it's also kind of slow. It's a very traditional process. So twice a year you can apply for money, and if you're in the first round, in the spring round, you're going to get the money just before summer. So that's basically 6 months from when you need the money to when you get the money. And that's a pretty cumbersome process. And it's also a very advanced rule set. Since .se is all about doing good shit for the web in Sweden, they have to make sure that the projects are not all that commercial. It's supposed to be open, it's supposed to be Creative Commons licensed, it's supposed to be all about open licenses and so forth. So they have a very distinct and kind of problematic rule set if you want to push things fast. Now there is help to be found. This is the crowd. People out there. And people have always been kind of prone to help each other and do stuff together. I think a lot of you have turned into your close environment of friends, family, and fools to try and raise some money initially. And that process can be aggregated into what is called crowdfunding. And I'm not going to talk all that much about crowdfunding because Daniel from Funded by Me is going to give you an example of how crowdfunding actually works. So I'm going to talk about how we try and build a bridge between the traditional innovation system and crowdfunding. So basically, this is what crowdfunding looks like normally. There is a project, you launch it on some kind of platform, and then the crowd puts money into it. That's how it works. Small amounts and a lot of hands putting money into your project, and some kind of platform who manages this magic system, and then you're good to go. Anyone has a good example of a crowdfunding project that has taken off recently? Right. Iron Sky. Flipping burgers here in Sweden, good. So what are the numbers for Iron Sky, for instance? How many millions? 1 million. 1 million euros. Yeah. Shitty movie. Any other examples? Are you looking into platforms like Kickstarter for inspiration? Do you see the kind of projects who gets a massive takeoff on Kickstarter? Well, you should, because it's really interesting. So this is the traditional way that a project works. You have the project, that's you. You have the platform, that could be in Sweden, funded by me or Young Hive. You have the crowd with friends, family, fools, and so forth. And what we strive to do now was to add a fourth element, and that's guaranteed by the Internet Fund. So in a project where .se and Vinnova work together, we found a concept and a way to try and tap into this process in a way that doesn't add any friction. That's just good for the project owners and just, enables you to push further and go farther. So this is one example. This is from Funded by Me, and this is projects that is under the category Internet. And this is where I want to see your projects in the future. And on the right side, you can see we talk about guaranteed financing. So what happens when you go through this flow is that when you sign up for a new project on Funded by Me, and you place that project in the tech or internet category, you get this question. You get asked if you want to be part of the program and if you want to apply for the guarantee by Internet Fund, the crowdfunding project. And it's very simple rules. And if you agree to this and you think this is good, you say yes, and you click continue, and you get a very simple rule set. We have put hours and hours into trying to make this rule set as simple as possible. Then what happens is that once you reach a threshold of funding by the crowd, in this case, when 50% has been funded by the crowd of your project, the next step kicks in. And that step is actually pushing your project into a Facebook group where we have a bunch of experts who within 48 hours has the task to try and evaluate your project. Not in a normal, heavy expert way, but in a very fast and agile way, and with big respect for the fact that the crowd has already vouched for your project. They've already said that we think this is good. And they haven't just done that by a thumbs up. They've actually placed their money into your project. They put their money where their mouth is and said, this is something that I want to see happen. And then the experts are just, a last little step to make sure that it sounds good. It's like a sanity check, a last sanity check. And if your project is approved by the experts within 48 hours, then you get the guaranteed batch. So here's the flow again. You sign up on a platform. You say, yes, I want to be eligible for the guarantee. When you hit the threshold of a 50% of financing, you are pushed over to the Facebook group. And that's the first time it gets visible that you have asked for this kind of guarantee. When you get guaranteed, you take that stamp that we put on your project and you go push it really hard all over the place and say, hey, look, I'm guaranteed. This project is going to happen. It's going to take off because it's guaranteed. And you also get the extra boost from being approved by the expert group. Going further, you get funded either by the crowd or by the top-off from the Internet Fund. Sounds reasonable, huh? Problems? Questions? Yeah. Excuse me? Actually, that's not the problem of this project, because that's the same thing that can happen in any crowdfunding platform today. That's the risk you take when you place a project in a crowdfunding platform. So again, what we want to do is that we want to put some traditional innovation money into this system as extra grease. We don't want to change anything at all, basically. We just want to put some extra money into the system. So everything that applies for a normal and traditional crowdfunding platform also applies to this. It's the same thing getting in here. Now, these are some of the questions that we recently get, often get when we talk about this. So why, for instance, have we placed a 50% threshold on it? Well, basically to make sure that we get an improvement from the crowd first. So that's the first stepping stone that you have to get past, really. And why the 100% max? Why don't we overfund the project? Well, we're happy if projects get overfunded within the platform. We don't have any problem with that. But traditional innovation money should not get into overfunding projects. So if you get 150% funding from the crowd, then we don't have to do anything else in it. So that's basically it. And what is the max? Well, the max that we want to provide into a project is 200,000 Swedish crowns. That means that you can actually put a project into the platform with a max of 400,000. So that's the number we're talking about. And why do we guarantee instead of just pushing the money once you hit the threshold? Well, we don't want to passivate or make the crowd inactive. We want to make sure that we grease the project as much as we can. And once you get the approval, you get the guarantee, we think that you have a much higher chance to get the funding from the crowd itself, and that's the best situation we can be in. So that's how we try to look at it. And about administration, well, it's really simple. It's once you have placed your project in the platform and approved to our rules, which are very simple, there is no other agreement. There is no other paperwork. All we want to do is to look into your project once within a year scope and see that it has moved in the direction you said it has moved. Otherwise, no paperwork whatsoever. The checkbox is the only agreement we need. Once you hit the threshold, once the project has done its time in the platform and it's time for a payout, you get the money as a donation and the rest is all up to you. That's how simple it is. A few questions we get about the experts and the flow. So do the experts see every project? Well, they see the project that has hit the threshold. They don't see when you check the box, only when you hit the threshold. That's the first time it's shown. And the process is supposed to be really fast. So like I said, within 48 hours, the experts should have given you a couple of thumbs up in the Facebook group and you're good to go. And if they don't want to give you a thumb up, they give you criticism and constructive criticism in comments instead, so you can build on that. And we have nothing against a situation where one of the experts starts talking directly to the project and maybe want to fund it from his own pocket or something. So we're very open about the whole process. And that's also the reason why everything is as open as it is. We believe in transparency. Now, looking at what's next, what's to come, that's really up to you. This project runs for the year to come. We have approximately 1.5 million to put into the system, and after a year we're going to evaluate and see if it's supposed to go on. But we need projects from you. We need you to get on the platforms, we need you to ask for the guarantee, and we need you to get the engine going.